Howdy, I'm Taylor. Welcome back to Beyond the Pew. Today we're going to be talking about what it means to be a man of God. So if I want to be a man of God, if you want to be a man of God, if you want your young men to be men of God, let's look at David. So what can we learn from him? 7 things. Number 1, David stood up for what he believed in. We get this right in the David and Goliath story, where he walks up, there are armies and his king and his brothers, and there's a Philistine standing there just boasting about how great he is and about how terrible the God of the Israelites is. And David, the young kid, is the only person that's like, wait, what? Y'all are just going to let this happen? Like, no, I've got to put a stop to this. So it's a hard thing to do. He was a young man. You have kids who are young men, and it's a hard thing to ask them. But David is who he was. He was a young man who was after God's heart, trying to follow God. And so he comes and he hears this and he says, doesn't matter to me, I'm going to stand firm in what I believe in. The second thing we learn from him is continuing that story. He prepared for battle. So he knew, and I love David because he is a man after God's own heart, but he also kind of taunts Goliath. That makes me feel a lot better about myself. But he prepared for battle. He knew that the Lord was going to be with him, and yet still, he went and picked up 5 stones. We all know the David and Goliath story. It took 1. It only took 1 stone, but he had the 5. Even though he knew the Lord was with him, he still did his part and was prepared for this battle. Okay, so what does that mean for us? It's like, okay, we need to prepare for this battle. So like whenever we are going to find times of temptation, your young sons are going to find times of temptation. Those are our battles. How are we going to be ready to fight those battles? From our preparation, from our times in prayer, from our times in growing in virtue. So when that battle comes, we're ready to fight. David also relied on good friends. So the thing that saves David's life is his relationship with Jonathan, because they were such good friends, like where they were willing to die for each other. He was such a good friend that as young men, Jonathan was willing to go to his dad and go to David and say, David, wait here. I'm going to go talk to my dad. He risks everything to go talk to his father, and his father stops. He says, okay, bring him back in. He's done a lot for the kingdom. The next thing that we learn about David, and this gets into that first version of the talk that we spoke about earlier, is that we all know that David messed up. Like this man who is after God's own heart just committed adultery, just committed murder. So what are we supposed to do with this? How are we supposed to sit with this guy being a man after God's own heart? Well, if we are striving to be a man after God's own heart, we are going to fall along the way, which leads us into our next thing. David is repentant. He knows that he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. He knows that he fell because he wasn't doing the things that God was calling him to, and that led him into sin. He made those choices. He dealt with the consequences. But here we go. In Psalm 51, I love that David wrote so many of our Psalms. He says, have mercy on me, God, in accord with your merciful love and your abundant compassion. Blot out my transgressions. Thoroughly wash me of my guilt, and of my sin cleanse me. And he says that his sacrifice is a contrite heart. He writes this right after he knows that he feels that guilt of what he has done with Bathsheba and getting her husband killed. Like he is a man who's saying, I messed up, God, and I want to be better. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far from my call for help, my cries of anguish? My God, I call by day, but you do not answer, by night, but I have no relief. How many times have we felt that as men? How many times have you felt it as parents? How many times have you young people gone to church and be like, I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing. Like David is a man who is honest in his prayer, honest in his relationship with God, and he is able to turn even these things into, but yet I will still praise you, yet I will still be with you. So in conclusion, we see that David is a man after God's own heart because he is committed to the Lord. Even when he messes up, he's ready to step back up to the plate and crank another home run, because that's what he wants to do. That is what he is built to do. And we all know his legacy, that his legacy led to Jesus coming from his lineage and our salvation coming through the lineage of this man who did great things and was also very flawed, but continued to be repentant, continue to grow, continue to learn. So that is how we can be a man after God's own heart. This is Beyond the Pew. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.